welcome to you all. We are now halfway through the 10 days of Thy Kingdom Come, day 5. This is a time set apart when we're encouraged to pray for God's kingdom to come to all now, especially to our 5 named people. Tonight I want us to reflect on what is being offered and who it is being offered to. Luke opens chapter 15 telling us something about the people who gathered to listen when Jesus was teaching. He tells us that they were dishonest tax collectors and notorious sinners. Well, the religious leaders and the specialists in the Old Testament law were not pleased. In fact, they were indignant and complained, saying, "Look at who this man Jesus mixes with. These are unreputable and well-known sinners. He even welcomes them." You can almost feel them bristling with indignation. Luke reports that in response, Jesus chose to illustrate his reaction to them with a story. To me, one of the things this story shows is that Jesus is not primarily concerned with large numbers. We will see that the majority are left. The main concern is the one that has wandered off and is lost in the wilderness, not knowing how to get back home. The one who no one sees. The one no one else cares for or even knows about. Yes, you have probably guessed aright by now. This is the story of the lost sheep as found in Luke 15 verses 1 to 6 and Mathew 18 verses 11 to 14. And we'll now read both verses both in Luke and Mathew. Many dishonest tax collectors and other notorious sinners often gathered around to listen as Jesus taught the people. This raised concerns with the Jewish religious leaders and experts of the law. Indignant, they grumbled and complained, saying, "Look at how this man associates with all these notorious sinners and welcomes them all to come to him." In response, Jesus gave them this illustration. There was once a shepherd with 100 lambs, but one of his lambs wandered away and was lost. So the shepherd left the 99 lambs out in the open field and searched in the wilderness for that one lost lamb. He didn't stop until he finally found it. Exuberant with joy, he raised it up and placed it on his shoulders, carrying it back home with cheerful delight. Returning home, he called all his friends and neighbours together and said, "Let's have a party. Come and celebrate with me the return of my lost lamb. It wandered away, but I found it and brought it home." And the reading from Mathew. "The Son of Man has come to give life to anyone who is lost." Think of it this way. If a man owns 100 sheep and one lamb wanders away and is lost, won't he leave the 99 grazing on the hillside and go out and thoroughly search for the one lost lamb? And if he finds his lost lamb, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 who are safe. Now you should understand that it is never the desire of your Heavenly Father that a single one of these humble believers be lost. We see that Jesus tells us that the shepherd thoroughly searched. Just think about that. Thoroughly searched in the wilderness until he found the lamb. That speaks to me of time, effort, probably pain and discomfort. It was not an easy task. So, what happens next? Did the shepherd tell the lamb off for disobeying him and wandering away from safety? If that was one of our children, what would we feel? Well, speaking for myself, it would probably be a mixture of great relief, fear at what might have happened, and anger. Sadly, this reaction is often what we expect from God towards us, that he would be cross with us and want to ground us or punish us. Let's look at how the shepherd in the story responds. With exuberant joy, he raised it up, put it on his shoulders, carrying it back with delight. He would very probably have been really weary, hungry and exhausted. Yet we see that he was full of joy and was energised at having found the lost lamb. Excuse me. In fact, he threw a party to celebrate, inviting his friends and neighbours. We read that amazingly the shepherd rejoices over the one lamb that was lost, more than the majority who remained. Jesus' comment on the meaning of this story tells us that it is not the Father's desire that a single one of these that have wandered off should be lost. In Luke, we read that there is great rejoicing in heaven over every one of these lost ones that is found. Have you been in that place in the wilderness, lost and alone? I know I have, and I know that Jesus came to find me through individuals, circumstances, and probably the prayers of others. And I know what a difference his kingdom coming to me made. He gave me life, hope and peace, instead of darkness and misery. I know that I am loved by Jesus, who is named in John's Gospel as the Good Shepherd, as is every one of his lost sheep. As we begin to understand just what is offered to us as his kingdom comes, how much we are loved, how unconditional that love is, and how we are given new life as we come into his kingdom, no matter where we have been or what we have done. How much more do we see that this same offer of unconditional love and new life applies to all those around us in our streets and our towns. As we think of our 5 named people and others that God may bring to mind, are we willing to imitate Jesus, the Good Shepherd, leave our comfort zones and go with Jesus to search thoroughly for the one that is lost? We know that this is God's heart for us and for the lost. And knowing this, we can be assured that if we ask him, he will be with us to guide our prayers and our actions as we seek to see thy kingdom come in the lives of the lost. Thank you for listening. I look forward to meeting up in Zoom in a few minutes as we unite in prayer for thy kingdom come. May each one of you know just how much he loves you and more of the new life that he has given to you. Amen.